When you buy a house, you get to decide which problems to fix and when you do this. Not so when you sign a lease. You might think that you're just temporarily renting a commercial unit, but this often isn't the case. You could be signing up to thousands of pounds of repair works for the landlord's benefit before you even take occupation. I'm Tim Clarke, bear with me and I'll explain how you can avoid some of the common pitfalls of signing a lease without taking the proper advice. When commercial tenants enter into a lease, many would-be leaseholders, especially those taking their first lease, or those that have yet to exit a commercial property, find that they simply don't understand the lease agreement they're signing up to. The most common area where this is the case is when it comes to the repair clause. I really can't say this enough. A commercial lease is not like a residential tenancy. There will be no fair wear and tear provision. In practice, it's even worse than this. Not only will many commercial tenants need to bring the property back into the same condition it was when they took the unit on, but they will likely be expected by their landlord to repair any areas which were in disrepair when they took on the property. We're not talking light bulbs and squeaky doors here. Sometimes we're talking about significant repairs such as addressing structural movement or wholesale roof replacement. It could even be that there are so many minor things wrong with the building that to address them all would run easily into the tens or even hundreds of thousands of pounds. If you don't take the right advice, all of this cost will be coming out of your company's profit over the course of the lease. Because of this, we believe that when taking a lease on a commercial property, no matter how big or small, it's crucial to take buildings advice, even if you plan to take the risky step of signing a lease without the help of a solicitor. Before you run off to speak to your usual surveyor, if you have one, you will need to find a building surveyor who is experienced in completing building surveys and dealing with lease-end dilapidations, which by itself is a highly complex area of law. I'll explain why. Unlike a traditional commercial building survey, where fully understanding the condition of the property is the most critical element, this forms perhaps only about a third of a leaseholder survey. After all, you only need to understand the building to the extent that it will affect you as a leaseholder. If you have a growing business, it's unlikely that you will care much about things which might need to be completed to the building many years after your lease has ended, and in many cases, you might be taking on only part of a building, so you will only want a high-level understanding of the areas retained by the landlord. When completing a leaseholder survey, your surveyor will check the proposed lease covenants which relate to the condition and use of the building. They will set these out in the report and explain their implications to you both generally and how they will apply specifically to the property you're taking on. There might be some clear wins contained in these lease clauses to de-risk your leasehold tenure by changing the wording slightly or through implementing specific exclusions to certain responsibilities, for example. This can help to make the lease fairer for a tenant. Your surveyor will explain these to you. Your surveyor will have inspected the property you propose to lease to understand its condition. They will know how long you plan to take the initial lease for and often what you expect your plans to be at lease end. Considering your proposed length of occupation, they will explain the condition of the building and what works of either repair and maintenance you will need to complete across the lease term and at lease end. Typically, this will exclude cyclical statutory testing and maintenance, so unless specifically included in the terms of the instruction, costs such as boiler and air conditioning servicing will be excluded from the narrative. If an element is in good condition, your surveyor normally won't go into detail on this, as it isn't deemed salient to the occupation of the property. Considering the proposed lease as it stands, your fit-out plans for the building and the condition of the building, this will allow your surveyor to suggest key items which will find their way into a schedule of dilapidations if they think they might not be addressed during the course of the lease. This will form a high-level dilapidations provision report. Your surveyor will draw together all of the expected costs arising out of the condition inspection and dilapidations provision section into a summary table of costs split into short, medium and long term, as well as lease end. This can give you an idea of what costs to expect across the lease term relating to repair and ancillary issues. Now here's the best part of a leaseholder survey. Your surveyor will suggest some mitigation strategies to reduce the cost of occupation and to make the lease fairer to you, the tenant. These proposed strategies can be implemented with the agreement of the landlord and will help you to keep hold of more of that hard-earned profit. After all, costs saved are the first profits you will make, and this is as true as ever when going into a lease properly advised. Depending on your relationship with your new landlord, it might be you or your solicitor that completes negotiations, so it's important that you share your leaseholder survey with your legal advisor. My advice would be that you shouldn't be shy in asking for lease adjustments. Your landlord doesn't want a void property probably more than you want the property, so most landlords are willing to make reasonable adjustments to a proposed lease, even if they don't agree to all requests. Just remember, it is critical to take advice before agreeing to the lease and certainly before signing. Once that lease is signed, you don't want to be the tenant suffering from buyer's remorse, so I recommend that you seek a building surveyor's advice as soon as you agree terms on a new commercial letting. This will give the solicitors time to deal with the survey's findings. If you're looking to take on a commercial leasehold property or have just agreed terms and need some help de-risking your occupation and increasing your profits, our friendly and knowledgeable team at Harris & Clarke will be delighted to help. We can be found at harrisonclarke.co.uk.